Control.
Okay, perfect. You guys, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, February 8th. I'm Carrie McHugh, and I am the chairperson for the Reimagine Creek Park Advisory Committee. So welcome everyone to the CAC meeting. I'd like to take a roll call. So Jennifer, you're here. Josh is here. John Nelson, TBD, Jason, and Katie. They're probably on their way. Our next order is to approve the meetings from 9/26/22. So is there a request for changes from any CAC members? Great. I'd like to motion to approve.
Can I have a question beforehand?
Yeah.
I was curious about that meeting over the last few months, and I had questions, and I never was able to see the minutes online. Or did they ever get online? Was there a chance for the community to review it?
You know something? I sent them in, so I am assuming that they're online. I didn't double check.
Well, I checked with somebody.
Sorry. Are you recording?
Yeah, I'm a.
Okay. I just want to know
sorry.
that we could just let everyone know.
Yeah.
So I think the best way to handle it, Carrie,
I'll follow up.
we'll follow up.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'll
all
make
right.
sure that
Because I did ask somebody from the town a month ago, and they just said sometimes it takes a while for them to get up, and it was already a month, and I just kind of let it go.
Do you remember who you asked?
Yeah, and let me just say something in regards to that. So we have a brand new town clerk, and there's been a lot of transition, and so there are actually minutes to another meeting that we have to get up. So I can talk to Serge and see.
It might have been Robin. I can't remember. I had some interaction with people over the last few months, but anyways.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Carrie.
I mean, but it's I want to get a sense of me, the outsider citizen, be brought up to date too before we go on with business. So, can you review what took place on September 26th?
Great. So Sean gave an update of the overview of the plaza. The latest news was that the county had moved from the immediate demolish at this point, and that their grant, which was based on the Memorial Park Retention Basin project, was extended until 2028. Without the county, the plaza will be ours and incorporated into the design. With the county, the design will encompass the surrounding town property and the creek.
Can you repeat that one more time? Can I get
Sure.
that in there? Just it seems
I'll
like that's important.
I'll repeat that same thing
Okay, cool.
today. So if you
Oh,
wanna
okay.
wait, yeah.
All right.
Let
That
them
seems
get to the
like an
minutes,
important
and then
piece of news
I'll
that
give
I
you the
hadn't
most
heard.
recent update that
Okay.
actually will change things that are in there. So.
Right. Now, is the September 26th or this meeting, is this an opportunity to make decisions that affect the future, or there's like no decisions to be
Right
made?
now, we're not making decisions.
Was-
today.
action
I'm just
on it.
giving an update. Yeah.
Right, because I do think
We have
like,
public comment coming after this,
Yeah.
so if you want to do that.
oh, okay,
Yeah, and
that's fine. I wanted to get my bearing there. Forgive me. All right.
Tim Hire.
Hey, Katie.
Okay, great. So,
Want to get a motion again?
yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the meetings from 9/26. Can someone second it?
So moved.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, right now,
We need to take a vote.
oh, I'm sorry. Can I
All in
take a
favor?
vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great.
That was the first part. Are you catching the minutes? Who made the first and who made the second, Kelly?
I did the second.
Josh made the second.
And can we make a note that hopefully the minutes have been by now visible for the whole community?
I'll make sure that
I mean,
checking on that.
before we even like approve it, that the
No,
community got a chance to look at it?
We're trying to a lot of us have something to do, and we're trying to have a helpful conversation and learn something.
I'll lay back. Forgive me, but I am intrinsically involved.
Sit back,
Yeah.
let it happen.
Huh?
If you have questions at the end,
Yeah. Okay.
that's great. It's,
Okay. No, I thought it was like a citizens meeting. I didn't realize it was a
The guy,
closed meeting.
both the chair and
Mhm.
Sean have
Yeah.
recognized that
Mhm.
the minutes are not readily available
Okay.
and will be followed up on.
All right. Cool.
I'll do it right after this. So,
Very good.
what's the next item?
Okay, public comments accepted and welcome during the meeting, so I'd like to open it now for time for public expression. this is only for items that are not on the agenda, and in accordance with the government code, each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. So would anyone like to do public comment?
Okay. 1 second here. Starting 3 minutes as I reach here. Okay. So I.
Do you want me to hold that for you?
Oh, Frank, thank you so much.
There you go.
Awesome. Point it in. So back in the summer, me and friends tried to get a little alternative organization called the Friends of Creek Park off the ground. We still exist in a nascent state, I would say. But one of the most important things that we felt a little bit kind of shut out of a process that had a vision and everything that was not going to be, that mine wasn't part of it. So we really strongly urge that whatever is approved, that there will be no need for a concrete berm or an additional concrete sidewalk, that we take the most strongest level of ecological conservatorship for this park as it is with ongoing. That's our predominant, and I'll just throw that right in there. That's what the Friends of the Creek Park is. We also would like to have somebody who is responsible for the love and care of this, besides dear Sean, God bless him, hardworking man, but we really would like somebody who's got this kind of conservative creator persona, as opposed to brass tacks, just trying to get the job done, which we appreciate. But we like to see this park be just beautiful. 50th anniversary is coming up in 2 years. As maybe you know, all of you know, this was a cement walk. This was garbage. These trees were not here in 1968. In 1975, I got here and they were like, so now this is a magical park. All of California should pay attention to this park. So we want to keep it known that way. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
And I'll address some things during my presentation about what you stated too.
Is there anyone else who would like to do a public comment?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. So I know that and I just talked to Jessica Rising from the chair of the EDC, and she wanted me to kind of make a little point, was we do understand that the design reimagined was pre-COVID. And once Sean and his team built Creek Park Plaza, there was a connection of the park to the downtown, similar to like Healdsburg or Sonoma. And even in Ukiah, they're going to tear down that county building and do something similar to connect the downtown. And so hopefully we would like take some time, similar to what Guy is saying, and kind of reimagine and try to keep something to connect downtown, because it's still going to be disconnected with that design, because you're still going to have the creek kind of block here. And if you're talking about able to view the creek, there's many other bridges that you can view the creek on. It would still be nice to have a different build, something that crossed over, kind of like what they do in the tunnel, on top of the tunnel heading into the city. You could bring some really cool food trucks and stuff like that and connect the downtown to the park. So hopefully we're going to reimagine. Thank you.
And I can address some of those things during
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Would anyone else like to public comment?
I have a couple questions, but they're on the actual agenda item,
You can wait till I'm done speaking, maybe. Although it's great to hear this beforehand, because then I can hopefully put
We
some
should
of
wait
my
for the agenda item.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, great. So let's move on to the agenda item. So Sean,
Okay.
your floor. Thank you.
Welcome everybody. Glad everybody's here. I spoke last week at the Chamber of Commerce, very similar presentation. As we all know, recently in the newspaper, and the county has stated that they're moving forward with building Bridge 2. And I'm just going to give a quick little history that, I've been working on this for 14 years. Building Bridge 2 is literally ground zero for flooding in Ross Valley. It's 2 feet lower than any other structure. And it causes about 400 plus other structures to flood homes and businesses. And it is something that the town's been working hand in hand with the county to get done. There's been some hiccups over the past, 6 months, a year or two, maybe even longer than that. But it seems like they're on course now to move forward with their flood control project. And I'm not going to really speak about the flood control project in its essence. I'm more here to speak about reimagining Creek Park. And so once the county is done, in theory, if they do it this summer, as we sit here speaking, I've authorized, based upon the council authorization, for RHAA to move forward with the 60% design plans, which basically were approved by the community and actually did have a very large community input. And I do hear that, you know, reimagine because of COVID, but to address some of your concerns or questions. So with Reimagine Creek Park, and because of the flood control project, this structure has to go out of the way, and we can't build a whole nother building on top of the creek or structure. First of all, the regional board, Army Corps, Fish and Game, they won't allow that. We were able to get in a bridge because of the connection idea that's about 20 feet wide on one end and 16 feet wide on the other. It'll be up against that building, assuming we also can get funding for it, and that's, you know, I'll talk about that a little bit too. The idea of doing this project, if all goes well, you know, we will come on the heels of the county, which could be as soon as like October. They have to do their work between July and October-ish, and because it has to do with working in the creek and habitat. They have to dewater the creek, they have to take the fish out. In theory, they're going to access it right where we're standing, so they would come down here and go down in here and demolish all this, and then, you know, after they dewater it and get the fish out of there, and then they would, you know, be building a new retaining wall on the San Anselmo Avenue side, and then laying back the bank here. And so once they get all that done, and we're not sure that these were questions that were asked before, you know, Scott and I, our assistant public works director here, believe that they're going to have to do some work from the other side. So it could be that we end up giving them all the parking between Creekside Pizza and Michael Feldman's art studio, and basically block off the parking with fencing. And speaking of fencing, just to throw this in there, we are getting new fencing, could start as early as Thursday or Friday, worst case, probably beginning of next week. Redwood fencing is going to be going up. Same places where this one is on the back end. The new redwood fencing that's coming in will actually be pushed up against the existing wood chip barrier there, so we'll gain a little bit of space there. The county is paying for that, to get that in there, and we might put some plants in, but it might only be there for 5 to 6 months.
6 feet tall.
6 feet tall, yep. So that is going in. And then, you know, with the design that was approved, just to remind everybody, and I just want to repeat again, there was a lot of community process, a lot of input, and if you try to change everything now, like going into doing anything more, there's already an EIR, there's an amendment to the EIR. It could be years in the making to do anything else. You know, we're looking at taking the plaza, basically where the wood chips end right there, is where see where the retaining wall is right here? So that's kind of terra firma right there going out into the street, right? And the reason that retaining wall has to stay is because we have a sidewalk there. But we're going to extend the plaza all the way out into the parking spaces and go from pretty much Creekside. We're going to do improvements over there for ADA reasons around there, coming all the way down to the art studio, and there'll be about a 20 to 25 foot wide plaza. The drawings show tables out there and everything, kind of like we have right now, but a little more space. And then the bridge itself could have tables and or benches on. And then if all goes well, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, a lot of this has to do with funding, which I will talk about. Redwood decking under the redwood trees, which would provide a better area for people to hang out in. It was in the renderings if people have been paying attention, in the drawings.
It's also better for the redwoods.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. It's better for the roots, because the roots don't like to get trampled and trampled and trampled. And part of my job is to protect trees too. This deck would get torn out for access, and so this deck would go back in. Somewhat similar, but probably bigger. And then this whole grass area would stay here, but there'd be like an amphitheater in the back end for sitting. So it'd be very similar, but different. One of the concerns I did...
When is are these is it viewable? Is apparently our plans now, you're deciding they're crystallized, so is it...
They're on council meetings. You can see them in previous council meetings. You can
Are they
see them
online?
Probably on the town website. They're all over the
This
place.
is the same design from December of last year, not
Correct.
this year.
Yeah,
I mean, a
nothing's
year and a month ago.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they've been frozen in time because of COVID. But
Yeah,
yes.
but they never really got. I remember one of the council members saying that they were only 30% approved at that meeting.
They
Now they're 60%
That's why I said they're 30% approved at the meeting, and we got authorization to go to 60%.
by the council.
Yes, and so once the 60% drawings are done, we will come back to the community, which will be the council, and maybe even the CAC to be determined. But typically, we bring the 60% back and we say, well, here's what everybody wanted, and that's a time where we can tweak things. Now, here's the tricky part, and right now we have enough funding to get to about 60% design level, but we need the community. And Brian, I don't know if he wants to talk about that, but we need the community to get involved with funding and donations. We have a couple big donors potentially, and we have other people that may help with this, but we have to get funding to finish the design, and we have to get funding for construction. And so, and we're kind of on a fast timeline. Part of the thing with the county going back and forth is like we start, we stop, we stop, we stop. And so the question is, in a perfect world, if funding comes in place, which I'm hopeful it may, we've been pretty lucky so far, that we can start in October. Worst case, maybe we start in the spring. There will be impact to parking. We'll lose, the few spaces that are still left there, but ultimately that was going to be gone anyway. The parking lot here will have some impacts. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I forgot, but that's kind of in a nutshell. But as far as being green, everything we do and everything I do, even though I'm an engineer, I was an environmental engineer for 7 years, I don't know if you know that, is based around being green. We have a climate action committee, we have a BPAC committee for bikes and pedestrians, and so everything we do,
I understand we have that beautiful word, green. Yes.
Well, but we also incorporating it. If you look at the Memorial Park parking lot, I'm not going to say this too much, but we're putting bioretention in there, we're putting EV charging, we're putting gray water pipe. So we try to be as green as we can be when the opportunity presents itself.
And then when humans do not have to intervene too much,
Sean, we should
that's
make sure
being
to
very
take
green.
Public comment and questions from the council.
He was directing his talk to me.
Yeah, is there any questions from the chat? You'd be fine. You mentioned October as a potential start date for a lot of the work.
Assuming that tunnel's done and the dead piece are in the water and we're outside the water, except for our bridge.
And the county piece would potentially begin at the earliest when?
July 15th? Tuesday, okay, yeah. Tuesday. It's because of stormwater issues and what the regional board article will allow.
And then I have one more question. I don't know if you or Brian have best position to answer it, but the question is, how has the tone of collaboration been with the county so far? I know you're working with a startup, and I think Terry has had a conversation with the planning zone.
Oh, well, I think they're fine. I think they're great. I mean, I think I, like my council liaison, Alexis Simon, we're all deeply disturbed, when the park was shut. But ultimately, the county's the landlord, and we lease it. We've had communications with them since, I guess we began meeting with them in December. And while there's been a lot of chatter about them, I think that right now that the county is poised to move ahead this spring is a really good sign.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have gotten this far without a partnership with the county. So I've been doing the best I can along with Alexis to sort of keep that partnership intact and make sure that while we get what the county wants done, because they currently own the property, we get the community vision that we began a long time ago.
And I'll just say I've been working with them for 14 years, and we've pretty much been working in lockstep with them, and sometimes there are hiccups and communication issues and disagreements, but we seem to be on the same page now and hopefully moving forward together in that direction.
Will the county continue to own the property after it's demolished?
The MOU that we have with them in thinking is that once this gets completed, the town will take it over. There are some legal questions related to that in terms of whether this gets built, and I don't want to go too far down flood control alley, with or without baffles. There's some issues that our town attorney is saying, well, do we want to take on that responsibility or liability depending upon what they do. And I'll just kind of be an engineer for a second. So on this side is a retaining wall, and where the bridge is, it turns into an abutment, but for most people it's almost the same, but it's heavier design. There'll be an abutment on this side to receive. The other side of the bridge, in theory, is going to be a pre-manufactured bridge that we just drop in place. and so we don't have to be in the creek. But you know, who owns the abutments is up for it becomes interesting. So there are some legal aspects there.
And Sean, did you say that the retaining wall is it the same retaining wall that's there now?
It's a brand new wall that one will come out, and they'll put a new wall in its place. Yeah.
And where's top of bank?
This side, so top of bank is actually, you can see it if you look over here. Brian was right. It's good to come over here. You can see the top of bank is right where these redwood trees start about, right?
Yeah.
It's going down, and naturally it was going down. They're going to restore that and plant it. And so this would be a natural bank on this side. And actually, there's something that was said earlier. I just want to throw this out there. Like I hear about, well, you know, we can see the creek from a bridge and everything. But one thing that I think you're missing, Frank, is that there's almost nowhere in downtown San Selma that you can see the creek from downtown, like standing on San Selma Avenue. So I actually think, I don't know about you, but I always hear that waterfront property is worth way more and nicer than buildings and bridges and everything. So yeah, but I think
I've been here for 14 years. I've seen the
I think that this once it's gone, and like I told everybody, we went from having, you know, buildings built over the creek and nobody wanted the buildings to be gone. Then now everybody loves this space. It's all iterative, and I think we have a great design, and we had a lot of good community input. And so I think, okay, I think ultimately this is going to be a beautiful space, and the process to get there sometimes is fun, but I do think people will love what comes next, and I just want to throw that out there. So.
There was a lot of
Yes, I listened to you quite a bit.
More
Thank you.
questions from
I'm
the
very involved in the
more
town.
questions from the
Appreciate
CAC. More CAC questions.
Do we have a sense of how long it's going to take?
That's a great question. We don't have a full timeline yet, so I won't answer that. I mean, I can have hopefully an answer in the not too distant future. So, yeah.
Question. So you mentioned the funding 30 and then 60%. Where's that money coming from?
A private donor.
Okay, all 60%.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right now, almost I think $500,000 on it, so $450. And you know, we've spent a lot of money with the community process.
Right.
So.
1 second, just to sort of stick with the Brown Act. More questions before the CAC. We're going to the public.
I have one question.
Yes.
Sean, you know, when they turn this down, do we have any sense on how big they can make it when we?
We're not going to be pushing out into the creek.
But could it go wider? Like, is it
No, we're gonna try to keep
Same
the same footprint because of the Regional Board, Army Corps, and Fish and Game. So we're gonna come further. We can make it higher,
Okay.
and we'll go further that way is the idea. And part of that's to meet ADA requirements, accessibility actually, in the state of California. So
More questions from the CAC, John?
Just one quick one.
Sorry, Terry.
So Sean, you mentioned this is kind of ground zero, right, for a lot of flooding.
yes,
And so this could come down as early as July, right? I think there's a lot that's been written about implications of what could happen downstream, but I don't know if we've adequately communicated, like when that comes down, what the ramifications will be for the people in the town, right? Like the improvement.
So you're talking about flood control, and I'll just talk about it for a minute because that's not really why we're here. I do know they're connected to the HIP.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's I think underappreciated.
I'm the floodplain manager,
Right.
And so my job is actually to approve whatever happens here, and I have to still see some information from the county before I can approve it. There's a floodplain manager in the town of Ross who also has to see it, and there is mitigation, but I would like to just throw out there that it's not 20 homes, it's 3 homes, it looks like, and we think it can be mitigated very simply. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. So.
Yeah, and the improvement will be potentially for many more.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's a great point. Actually, thank you. I'm gonna.
I think in terms of support for what we're doing here,
you're removing you're removing over 400 other structures or reducing their floodwaters, and that's a huge point in terms of liability and flood control. Yes. Thank you for that.
yeah, sure.
More questions from the CAC?
Okay, great. Can we open up? Oh,
Well, are we going to talk about the fundraising campaign and?
We'll talk
what
about
the-
that a little bit. Let's get public.
Okay.
Let's take public comment for the agenda item from the public.
Okay.
Okay,
Just to
great.
stick with that.
Any public comment?
Thanks, I'm Ann Pulitzer. I wanted to ask you, Sean, you gave a good presentation and you told me a lot of things I want to know right now. I knew some already from the chamber meeting. But so you're talking about the timeline. So June 15th, the project starts. Ideally, the bridge comes out in July. This runs, if it's on a tight timeline, through October, pretty much September.
For them
so
to get in and out of the creek.
3-4 months, yeah. And so then the county, which is the reimagined part, comes in. Ideally,
No, the
in
county is
Oh, it's a town.
Building Bridge 2.
Building
The town is Reimagined Creek Park.
Okay, so explain the actual.
So the county is the flood control project, which is the removal of
Yeah,
that
I know
building.
but I mean just the timeline. So June.
They're
15th.
They're like June 15th to October 15th. But
Right.
I'll, with the caveat, that's working within the creek. They still
Okay.
might have improvements to do outside. In theory, any outside improvements, they're going to give us the funds to do their part because we want to take it over from
I
there.
see.
Like putting this back or stuff like
Doing everything.
Right.
I'd rather have us do it than
Right.
them, but yeah.
Gotcha.
Right,
Right.
yes.
And how long then after the initial? I mean, how long is this whole project?
I don't. Josh just asked that.
Yeah, but
I don't know
mean,
how long. So,
Can you
so
spitball it? I mean, because I mean, you know more.
If you
more
can't,
than we do.
if you keep John, if you're
6
not
months,
prepared
yeah.
to give anything.
Actually, his guess was mine. He said 6 days. I was going to say 6 months, but I just want to say
Guesses are good.
to be determined. And here's the caveat. And I want everybody to understand this. Just like actually Memorial Park, where we had some hiccups,
Right.
weather and rain can and will delay things. So if we have a big winter, then we won't work for a couple months because we don't want to create erosion issues and go, violate our own rules.
Right.
And so to be determined. But I
Yeah,
would say
like expanded.
it could
to-
end up being like it takes, my goal would be to get it ready for the following summer. I'll just put it that way.
So
That would be
like-
my dream and my goal.
So yeah, it could go to 8-9 months.
Less than
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
A lot less than 3 years. If I have anything to do with it, yes.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yes.
So, there's always been this confusion since CAC was started, right? About where the county is and where CAC is. At the end of the day, the town should be concerned about the way the county leaves its projects, right? Which is kind of at the core why CAC was started, right? So you can just go through in the old Acorn building, right? The county bought that and they were going to turn this into a roundabout. Then it just looked like crap for years.
Actually, I'm the one who got them to buy that building, and I can tell you what's going on there. But that's a different
Okay,
subject.
but I'm
Yeah.
saying, but it's been years, right? And the way they block this off, it turns into this fence. So CAC is one of these things where we saw this coming down the pipe, and we're like, all right, but are we just going to have this big, ugly hole in our town that looks junky? And that's CAC's mission, is to come in after the county has come in and ripped all this out and say, okay, how do we kind of try to keep what's nice about Creek Park? So I just want to make that point, right? Because everybody thinks they're together. They're not. The CAC is coming in and saying we have to look at it every day. We have to live here.
And I have a business across the street that's
Right.
every single day.
That's why we're doing what we're doing, right? It's not some there's no agenda beyond that.
I have a little bit.
Additional questions?
Yeah, I got one more question. Regarding this, the grant. Okay, so it was extended to 28, right, in September.
2028. yeah.
2028. So that was the money that migrated from Memorial in 2015. And there's been various sunsets that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's rolled on.
The states increased those.
Why did Rosemary Gaglione say that it ends in 2024?
Because they actually been told that even though they have until 2028 to finish submitting all their documentation, that the project has to be done by the end of 2024.
But that's weird because again, I mean, not to be.
That's all I know.
Okay.
So,
I have,
yeah, I actually applied for and got the grant from Memorial Park.
I know.
Which became
which is,
Creek
thank
Park
God.
and Fairfax. But yes.
Yeah,
so
no, that was great, and you guys
And
have
you're
played
awesome,
it out.
so.
No, it's been wonderful because it's like don't leave the money on the table,
Yeah.
Right.
But as to your comment on the mitigation, you guys know, some of you know that I've been angling for a different approach to this, right? So mitigation is actually more than 3 houses, and Ross
what? Say that again.
is more than 3 houses downstream. So the mitigation piece,
It's not more than 3 houses.
they would disagree. Ross
I mean, look, can we focus on what this update is?
But
that's
the
a different
thing
stuff.
is-
You come to the flood
Okay, it's a
meeting.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not gonna-
But
Yeah.
it impacts on this because the hitch on this has been that the mitigation hasn't been in place, right? So isn't there a way to extend this out a little longer past 24 if the grant's in place to 28, get that mitigation
That is a
done?
county question, and
Okay.
and from what
All
I've been
right.
told,
That's
no.
what I wanted to know. Okay, thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks,
Is there
Brian.
any more public comment focusing on what we're discussing today?
Yeah. So you mentioned about the
Sorry,
parking,
Gus
taking
was
up the
first.
parking. Okay.
Oh, Frank can go first.
Thank you. So you mentioned about the parking, and this is a big deal downtown with the parking already. How are you going to try to mitigate the parking situations? Are you going to start enforcing the parking like we've been asking for for
So
14,
we are
15 years,
hiring
so-
a new parking enforcement person. I don't know. I think the hope is that going to start in the near future. The town's going to be sharing that person with another jurisdiction because we don't really have someone just dedicated to parking. So that should get better.
Yeah, because if you're gonna have all that construction, trucks, parking.
And if you let me know if you see things, I mean, I can and will. PD, I can ask them to, and they do. They'll come out. But I agree with you.
You've obviously been great.
But I agree that we could use more parking enforcement.
Yes. Thank you very much. I'll keep it short and sweet. Go ahead, Guy.
All right. For anybody listening, CAC, can somebody give me what that stands for?
Community Advisory Committee.
Community Advisory Committee. Is that that's just a standard name for any committee, or just this one?
Yeah,
But it's like an ad hoc.
Yeah.
It's like
Does it,
like
when everybody says that, they mean this group and?
this group is called the CAC. And
Like
then
just
it
the CAC.
disappears.
It's a reimagine.
Okay.
Right, but once the project is done, it disappears. The advisory committee disappears.
I see.
Versus
I
other
mean, I
committees
guess
of
I
the
see.
town that are-
Okay. All right. I feel like that we could have had 100 people from this community raptly engaged and enjoying and wanting to be part of this, to me, a multifaceted event that has so many pieces, moving pieces for the town of San Anselmo. And my sense is that the town and the Reimagined part got started on a project that, once it was started, kind of kept everybody out. And back when it was started, they were saying, oh no, you've already missed the... Anyhow, there's just so many mysteries. Going back to a year ago, December, when I think the last discussion about the park before the council, again, my memory was that the kind of limbo status it was left was that everybody on the council agreed that it was 30% approved. That was December. And again, to this jump to 60%.
You're confusing two
Wait,
things.
yeah, just to be clear, I'm on the council.
Right.
There's no need to revisit what happened at council.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have a question about today's presentation?
Well,
If not, then we will close public comment.
well, can you just see can you see my connection, what I'm trying to make?
No, I cannot.
Well, can I try to explain it to you?
You've
have
brought
3
this point up
minutes.
twice, so go ahead.
All right, thank you. One more time, just as an outsider of a citizen who probably doesn't know what he's talking about, but wants to get some answers. The design that we have seen with the concrete sidewalk perimeter and the fences surrounded and the redwood decking were sent before the public in the fall of 2022. Was that?
Actually, there's been many meetings. I don't know,
But-
there's probably been a
let's
dozen
just let
meetings,
Guy
yeah.
have
All
the
right,
3
so
minutes.
when that came to the council,
There's 3 minutes.
that design got a response that, all right, we see 30%. And that's the way I heard it left. So I wanted to know, because you say now it's 60%, where was the discussion, or
I'll give you this answer one more time.
We want to time this though, right?
Okay.
Because it extends, right? So,
So
Guy, do you have
I-
any additional questions?
well, it's so much. I do believe there should be a town hall meeting for
There
it'd
will
be
be
a
town hall
wonderful.
meeting when I get
Well,
back.
guys,
soon.
you've got 2 more minutes for your questions.
Oh,
and
really?
comments.
Thank you. That's very generous.
Can I just clarify one thing? The 60% is going for approval, right? That's what I just,
Can we-
I
can we
think
need
that's
to-
where he's confused. He thinks
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to
60%.
try to clarify.
Okay.
When
So-
Guy's finished all his comments.
All right. Well, they're kind of questions too, but yes, please. It's sometimes good to have a back and forth where then you can
Not
go
in this
further.
venue.
Beautiful little democracy that we have. So I guess the next thing that comes to mind is a town meeting of 2022 in June or July, when the woman engineer from the county, can't remember her name. Can you help me with that? Her name? Liz.
Liz Lewis.
When Liz came down, and at that point in time, the essay hadn't hit the fan, and she was talking about negotiating. She used the term negotiating with the town. That would have been for the town having the power or liability or ownership, right? Did that just get
Has not been determined yet. As I stated earlier, we're still working on that agreement. So.
okay? Is it okay? I'm hoping that it's still like an option for the town
So
to pursue
a minute
that.
left, Guy. Additional questions? That'll strong than answer.
Yes, I just want to also add that with the Friends of Creek Park, we really want to have a minimalist no extra concrete if at all possible, and we know it's possible, more vegetation. We oppose the redwood decking. If we do the platform as much as humanly